All right, today we are diving into a theory that is so out there, so radical, it really shakes the very foundation of the world's largest religion. We're going to explore this argument that the Apostle Paul, that he wasn't just spreading the gospel, but was actually part of a very sophisticated Roman intelligence operation.
So let's just jump right in with a question that really gets to the heart of this whole thing. We all think we know who founded Christianity, right? But the historical perspective we're looking at today suggests the real story is way more complicated.
To really wrap our heads around this puzzle, first we need to see the huge difference between the message of Jesus and the message that was later built about him. According to this theory, they're not just different, they are two completely different ways of seeing the world. Okay, so this right here is the central conflict. On one hand, the teaching of Jesus was a spiritual philosophy. It was all about inner truth, compassion, and how to live right here in this world. But the teaching about Jesus, the one that was mostly shaped by Paul, that became a cosmic drama about a divine being, original sin, and getting saved just by believing in his sacrifice. You see the difference? It's a way of life versus a religion of faith. So how in the world did we get from one to the other? Well, the evidence seems to point to one key figure, a man who is just full of contradictions, Paul of Tarsus. This theory basically says that he is the true founder of the religion we now call Christianity. And this one quote just sums up the entire shift perfectly. Paul's theology took a philosophy by Jesus and turned it into a religion about Jesus. It completely moved the focus from the teacher himself to making him an object of worship. You know, the official story of Paul, the one you find right in the Bible, is actually filled with details that, when you look at them with a critical eye, they raise some pretty serious questions. I mean, think about it. His Roman citizenship, that gave him incredible privilege and protection. This was an elite, educated man who, by his own admission, violently hunted down the first followers of Jesus. Then, he has this sudden, mysterious conversion, and afterwards, he almost never quotes Jesus' actual teachings. And maybe the most suspicious part, every single time he gets into deep trouble, who shows up to save him? Roman authorities. Now, the traditional view, of course, is that this was all part of God's plan. There's this popular analogy that says Jesus came up with the perfect product, the message of salvation. But it was Paul, the brilliant business manager, who created the franchise model to take that message to the whole world. And here is the massive problem with that analogy. Jesus' core message was fundamentally against materialism, against wealth, against hierarchy. You know, the very things a global franchise is built on. He taught people to give away their possessions, not to build huge empires. The model just doesn't fit the product. Okay, so if Paul's theology seems so inconsistent with what Jesus was actually teaching, what was his real motive? To understand the theory that Paul was a Roman agent, we have to look at the huge existential threat that Rome was facing at the time. For centuries, the Roman Empire was dealing with these bloody, relentless, ideologically fueled revolts coming out of Judea. And the Romans, who actually respected fanaticism in their own culture, they saw this as a kind of unbreakable weapon. They could win battles, sure, but they couldn't seem to defeat the idea that was driving the rebellion. Military force just wasn't cutting it. Rome figured out that to really win this thing, they couldn't just beat armies on the battlefield. They had to neutralize the ideology itself. From their point of view, they had to somehow disarm the core beliefs that made the Jewish rebels such fierce and resilient enemies. And this is where the theory presents Paul's theology not as some spiritual revelation, but as a brilliant psychological operation, one that was designed to do exactly that, to dismantle the ideological engine of the Jewish resistance from the inside. So check this out, this is the crucial point. Each one of Paul's major theological ideas seems to perfectly target and neutralize one of the three pillars of Jewish resistance. He tells his followers that the law that keeps them separate and unique, it doesn't matter anymore. He uses his Roman citizenship as a shield, showing that the empire can protect you. And this is the big one. He completely changes the idea of a warrior Messiah who will come and destroy Rome into a peaceful spiritual savior whose kingdom is in heaven, not here on earth. And then you have this, from Paul's own letter to the Romans. This verse commands complete and total loyalty to the government, arguing that even the Roman emperors are appointed by God. I mean, for a movement that was born in an occupied territory, that sounds a lot less like a persecuted prophet and a lot more like a statement from a pillar of the imperial order. So you have to ask, why did Paul's version of the faith, a version that Jesus' own family reportedly opposed, why did that become the one we know today as global Christianity? How did it win?
Well, the theory argues it all came down to a few key factors. For one, Paul's version was just way easier for non-Jews to join. It was also politically safe, and eventually it even became useful to Rome. And maybe most importantly, his main rivals, the original community in Jerusalem, led by Jesus' brother James, they were completely wiped out by the Roman army during the War of 70 CE. They were the last ones standing.
So the big takeaway from this whole theory is that Paul essentially created a brand new religion. He took this localized, revolutionary, anti-imperial Jewish movement and completely repackaged it into a depoliticized, universal faith that was perfectly suited for the Roman Empire.
And so that leads us right back where we started, with this central question. Was the man who shaped the world's largest religion a divinely inspired apostle on a mission from God? Or, as this theory suggests, was he maybe the most successful counterintelligence agent in human history? The answer, whichever way you lean, changes everything.